Welcome to Red, White, and Blue. From the right, I'm Gary Polland.
And from the left, I'm David Jones.
Still from the left in the new year, David. Tonight we welcome
Happy New Year to you.
Mayor Annise Parker. And Mayor, you have now beat Mayor Bill White's record of the number of most appearances on Red, White, and Blue, so congratulations. Or I guess you could say you survived David.
I'm happy to be on with you, Gary. I don't know about David.
Well, David gets the first question,
and you get one, and you have to get one more term, and then you're equal to him in terms of his tenure as mayor of Houston, right? And
I just started this term. I'm not worried about what happens later.
Yeah, well, we have to talk about what happens later because that's what everybody wants to talk about. They
really?
want.
No, I think they want to talk about what's going on in the city of Houston right now, today, affecting their lives.
I read in the paper that Mr. Bradford, Councilmember Bradford, is being asked about his future race next term. But it's true, isn't it, that in Houston, democracy has a problem. 12% of registered voters, you got 50%. That means 6% of the registered voters of the city of Houston are yours. And, that's a lot of people left out that are not participating. And your buddy Bob Stein says it's a repudiation of everything that you and City Council have done in the last couple of years. That's what Stein said.
It's frustrating to have so few Houstonians vote. In a democracy where people fought and died in order to give people the right to vote, we have a responsibility to go out and vote. And as a citizen, I care deeply about that, and I find it very frustrating. But I also understand, having been in politics for a long time, that people who are generally satisfied, aren't concerned about anything, they stay home. It's the people who are passionate, for or against, who show up and vote. And I actually would disagree completely. I think that the majority of Houstonians feel the city is moving in the right direction and are generally satisfied with the representation that they're getting.
What do you think they're satisfied with, those people that stayed home? What exactly do you think happened in the last 2 years that City Council, your administration, were responsible for that they say, oh, great, we're happy now?
In the midst of a recession, we had a lower jobless rate than any other region in America. In fact, we have recovered the jobs that were lost since 2008. We're the fastest job-creating city in America. We continue to grow. We have the best quality of life. Frankly, we're the best place in America to live, to work, to raise a family. And we're going to remain that way. We are a well-run city.
Now, all you have to do is persuade Gary to move back.
I pay taxes in Houston, David, and live here. Mayor, let's talk about the state of the city today. Because obviously, to be fair, when you took over, the city had lots of issues. We were in deep financial trouble. We were going into the brunt of the recession or mini depression that we suffered. Revenues were down, and you and the city council made a lot of tough decisions.
It's been extremely difficult 2 years. I balanced two very, very difficult budgets. You raise revenue or you cut spending or you do both. And frankly, we did both with the emphasis on cutting spending. We cut more than $200 million in spending. I had to lay off more than 760 city employees, not one police officer and not one firefighter. We protected public safety, but we did the prudent thing by cutting our expenses. We're a service organization, and so the money generally goes to salary and overhead. We also focused on, we did not raise taxes. We did not take on more debt. We focused on cost of service recovery for special services that we provide. Hadn't taken a look at it in a very long time. If you own a certain type of business that no one else really, a very small segment of the population cares about, maybe a sexually oriented business, why should I subsidize that? You need to pay the full freight of providing permits and inspections to your business. And that's been our attitude all along. And we've also focused very aggressively on people who owe money to the city of Houston. We've started filing suits to collect back taxes, back fees. We're going to be a lot more aggressive. If you owe us money, we're going to come after it. And that is the fair thing to do to and for the taxpayers.
Do you think it's a fair thing to describe the present governing structure of the city of Houston as conservative, given that in this last election we saw several prominent conservative reactionaries, some would say, endorse people who beat Democrats? And what is a Democratic-controlled city? I guess the question then becomes, is there a progressive coalition that anybody who is a progressive can count on, given the losses in the last election of Miss Jones, Christy Thibaut, very good Democrat, couldn't make it. Apparently no one in a Democratic coalition, which you're a part of, can deliver a vote.
I have this, David, I don't know, there's so many things wrong with that statement, I don't know where to start. They're actually the
Would
same
you have preferred
number.
Thibaut
They're
to Andrew Burks?
Okay, first of all, I would not mispronounce her name, but there are the same number of Republicans on council as there were in the last administration. And Andrew Burks is a Democrat. He is active in the Democratic Party, so I don't know what you're talking about. We are a Democratic city in that we vote as a city for Democratic office holders. We voted overwhelmingly for President Obama in the city limits of Houston. And the majority of the citywide leadership in the city of Houston is Democratic. However, this is a nonpartisan city council, and we run in nonpartisan races. I had support from all across the political spectrum, and I appreciate that many of the council members draw from the right and the left as they campaign.
Yet the issues that people vote on, apparently, if you believe a certain questionnaire that goes out, sent out by Mr. Polland here, are appraisal caps and user fees and drainage fees.
Actually, I got a very good grade from Mr. Polland's questionnaire, and there's no question that I'm a Democrat.
Reductions of services as opposed
and
to finding
reduced
revenue.
Services,
right.
Did not raise taxes, did not take on debt, reduced services in the city of Houston, and we still have a well-run, well-managed city.
And that's a conservative platform, right?
And my number one job over the last 2 years has been trying to grow jobs in Houston and hold on to the jobs we had, even though from a city standpoint I had to do the prudent thing and reduce our overhead in the city of Houston. I've also been very aggressive in economic development. We are one of the most business-friendly cities in America, and there are two things you can do. You can provide a good platform for businesses to operate on, which is good infrastructure, good services, a safe city. We're one of the safest big cities in America. But you can also provide appropriate, quantifiable incentives for appropriate investment, and we've been doing that. So we have been growing jobs
Not according to Peter Brown, who wrote a letter to the editor of the Chronicle saying that we're not creating any jobs in the city of Houston. It's basically, and 37% of them are minimum wage. Mr. Brown, he's not. That's not a critique of you.
Jobs are jobs, and we have jobs across the range of pay grades and incomes. One of the big challenges when I took office was that the cancellation of the shuttle program, and I spent a lot of time going back and forth to Washington, working to keep the jobs we have. And I want to say very clearly, and to a lot of Houstonians who seem to be under a misconception, that we are still home to the Johnson Space Center, and we are still home to the Astronaut Corps, and there are some 14,000 employees of NASA. We lost several thousand jobs, but we are still part of the space program, and we've aggressively tried to hold on to them.
Back when there was a great society, Gary, we got the NASA.
We're in the middle. We're in the middle of a region that is growing economically, and we as a region are in competition with the rest of the world, not just the rest of the United States. So we're all regionalists. We work really well together to bring companies and jobs to this region, and then when we get them down here, sure, we'll elbow each other out of the way to decide, are you going to be in Sugar Land, are you going to be in the city of Houston, are you going to be in a Bel Air, or are you going to be out in the Woodlands? But this region has been doing very well.
So there you go, David. Mayor, I want to mention the Port Commission. And the Port Commission is a structure created by the legislature, run by the city and the county together, and it's been in the news quite a bit lately. They had the, $130 million White Elephant cruise terminal that no one has ever shown up at. We have controversies over members. And the city appointment, who just got renewed, Kazai Lowell, seventh time he's been reappointed to the Port Commission, is an organizer of illicit gold smuggling operations, according to the Chronicle. And this is the best the city of Houston can come up with to put on this Port Commission?
His name is Case Lowell. There are two city appointees, two county appointees. There are appointees from small cities, and then the county and city jointly appoint the chairman. There is a presumption of innocence in this country, and there has not been a hint of scandal about Mr. Lowell and the port. Now, I agree with you completely about the cruise terminal to nowhere. That was actually, I believe, built
not on your watch.
back in the Brown administration. So it's been there 8 years or so,
Still not
10
used.
years. And they made a bet on the future of the cruise industry that they lost. They need to get in there, and I know that they're aggressively trying to do that and figure out how to repurpose that facility. There's been also some needless controversy over the current port director. He is going to be leaving, going back to the private sector, and so they're looking for the next director. What we have to strive to do is to make sure that the person who is chosen to run the port is insulated from the politics of the city, the politics of the county, and frankly, some very unfortunate politics that's been going on the Port Authority Board. That is, it's one of the big economic engines for our region, and it is been, other than the cruise terminal decision, which frankly I think was board-driven, the actual day-to-day work of the port, they've been doing very, very well.
So maybe, do you think it may be a good idea to abolish the Port Commission and have the mayor and the county commissioners jointly decide the executive director of the port and have them answer to the politicians as opposed to appointees? Because all the issues we've had with, not all the appointees, but some of them.
Well, we've had this system at the Port of Houston for a very long time, and it has functioned remarkably well for us over the years. I actually think having talented individuals who are willing to donate their time to the day-to-day, oversee as a board of directors for the port is of benefit. They get much more attention and scrutiny than they would if it defaulted to the city and
maybe we should
the
have term
county.
limits like you have to run under.
Term limits are not a bad thing, and I will point out that I made a push to change the city's appointees, but these are council appointments.
I understand
They're not mayoral appointments, and the good thing that happened to me during that process is I had the opportunity to get to know both of the city's appointees better. And even though they're not my nominees, they are very responsive and accountable.
Here's who you do appoint. You appoint the chairs of various city committees.
And I do
And the
actually appoint, the Metro board members and, chairs of the city council committees. Council committees are, other than the Fiscal Affairs Committee, which is by law, the other committees are at the convenience of the administration.
And the Fiscal Affairs Committee chairman is?
Stephen Costello.
And his assistant is? And our number two is
Mr.
Bradford?
His vice chair, Councilmember Bradford.
So did you pick two people that one might be an engineer candidate for mayor someday, and the other one is a very prominent African-American who actually got a lot of votes? What's the reasoning behind those two guys in those very prominent positions?
Because they understand the finances of the city of Houston and they're willing to put in the work to make sure that we do what we need to do. And they bring a very conservative mindset in fiscal issues, very similar to mine, to the job.
There's that word again, conservative.
The Budget and Finance Committee of City Council is the most, actually that's the second most important appointment I make, the first being Mayor Pro Tem, and both of those gentlemen, I have complete confidence in their clear-eyed look at the city budget and their ability to help sort through the priorities of the city.
And what about the task force that you have that is advising you on long-range planning, fiscal planning, chaired by Mike Nichols? How will that committee's input be managed and delivered to, what kind of product will they deliver to your subcommittee or your Fiscal Affairs Committee at Council?
They're in the process of winding up their work. Their period ends at the end of January. I hope to put together a smaller working group to continue after they complete their work. City Council created the structure for this committee. I appointed the private sector members, and I think we have some great private sector folks on the committee. I also appointed 3 council members, interestingly, including Councilmembers Costello and Bradford and Councilmember Clutterbuck, who is no longer on council. But the committee includes representatives from each of the 3 employee unions and each of the 3 employee pensions. So it was very clear when they were added to the committee that we were not going to come up with a consensus document. So their charge has been to examine everything. I opened myself up and put out the challenge. If there are millions of dollars that I have overlooked, if there are efficiencies that we haven't addressed or not at least moving toward, point them out to me and we'll fix them. And what they have come up with is a list of, they did a brainstorming session, and unfortunately the Chronicle picked it up and some of the other media, and it was not a refined list. It was sort of a brain dump from everybody in there. And then now they're working their way through of all of the ideas of things to do. But there's not a lot of magic in this. The big elephant in the room, or the big donkey in the room,
will be a property tax increase. We have the same rate.
His concerns about pensions. Our
I see.
employees deserve a fair and reasonable pension, and they deserve security after they leave employment, active employment in the city of Houston. But the taxpayers of Houston deserve pension security as well, to know that I can provide for them the services they need. And so, the controversy keeps coming up that this committee was not created to attack the pension, but you can't talk about the financial issues of the city without dealing with it.
Was it created to bring in revenue?
Well, no, we'll get to that.
It is designed to consider the overall financial aspects of the city, and I see that Gary has some of the documents that were given to the committee, and we have posted them all on our website.
Yeah, they're all
This is not a
available.
secret star chamber. Go to the city's website, find the fiscal responsibility page, and you can see what the structural problems are in the city's budget. And as much as I have done to rein in spending and recover costs of providing certain services, we're still spending more money than we're taking in, and the costs that is not within my control, pension costs.
The pension costs, and also, of course, medical care being another one.
Medical care is one. It's not completely in my control, but we have taken some serious steps. We got a new health benefits provider. We did cost avoidance, and we also lowered the cost of our health insurance.
What property tax
good.
rate increase would eliminate your pension contribution problem?
More than I believe that the citizens of Houston, in the midst of a recession, would want to pay.
Well, we have a trade-off between the property taxpayers and people such as the CEO of a major energy corporation who just, he picked up $95 million just by selling his company.
So David wants city income tax. Is what he's telling.
Philadelphia has something like that. Los Angeles has something like that. Philadelphia's general fund budget is $2.5 billion. Where are we?
David, you're just wasting time because it's not going to happen. There is not going to be an income tax in the state of Texas anywhere, and I'm focused on the tools I have to make sure that this continues to be a great city. And if I can do things to help grow jobs in the city of Houston so that people can pay their water bills or their property tax or their sales tax, which is what funds this city, we'll be fine. But I have to watch the bottom line and how we spend the money. I believe people will pay taxes, but we have to promise them and show them that we are doing a good job as stewards of those taxes.
That's critical. But you did talk about pension planning. Isn't one of the issues, Mayor, in the world we now live in, that private sector pensions are moved toward 401k type plans? That's what most people are now getting in the private sector.
See, I want to be real clear. I have not. I didn't drink the Kool-Aid on. We have to switch to a defined contribution 401k type plan
like private sector,
rather than a defined benefit plan. We have to find pension security, and in either type of plan, in my view, you can create one where it's not cost effective. But you can also create, under either scenario, a pension that is safe and secure for both sides. But the difficulty is that as soon as you start trying to have a reasonable and reasoned conversation about it, people wave their hands and say you're trying to strip our pensions away. No, I want to be able to provide the police officer out on the street a salary and benefits that are good for him today, and I want to make sure that we also provide a baseline for our retirees, both of which are sustainable. And there's only one pot of money.
And you got to be able to pay for it, which is the big thing.
Pay for it.
You know, as you know, David has this fixation. He keeps wanting to raise property taxes, but you actually were involved in pioneering a new way of raising funds for specific projects. That is the infrastructure and drainage fee that the City of Houston passed that's going to be dedicated to infrastructure and drainage improvements and construction over a lengthy period with dedicated money.
It's a 20-year program. We are calling Rebuild Houston. We have Rebuild Houston Water and Sewer and Rebuild Houston Streets and Drainage, and the fact that the voters of Houston voted to place this drainage fee on themselves in the midst of a recession, in the midst of a very anti-incumbent, anti-government mood, tells you a lot about how Houstonians feel about themselves and about the future. We are optimists, and we also understand that you have to invest in the basics. You have to do maintenance. You have to, for a city, you have to spend money on streets and drainage and water lines and sewer lines, or you begin to choke yourself off as a city.
And as a city who wants
investment.
Wants to have a great future, you may not want the same tax rate as Laredo, which is what we have. I mean, we're 13th of 25 cities in the state of Texas in terms of our...
Do not judge any city...
Is that the quality of life that we're headed for?
Judge a city by the quality of life in that city. And I'll put the quality of life in the city of Houston up against any other city, which is why we continue to grow. And that why we are a magnet for those who want to grow a future for themselves from all over the world. We are a job engine here in this region, not just in the city of Houston. And we are a city of the future.
This is the Texas miracle. You might as well be Rick Perry here. I mean, it's all based on people having discovered natural gas in Central and North Texas. I mean, is this our job creation strategy?
I talked about this in my inaugural speech, that the city of Houston is a city that, by all rights, shouldn't be America's fourth largest city because we don't have what you would consider. Nobody discovered gold here. There was really very little oil and gas here. It's over in Beaumont, we're 50 miles from the ocean, but we're a major port. It's all about people who are willing to roll up their sleeves, work hard, and make a difference. And we have been a culture over the years that has attracted those kind of people. And you have to make sure that you maintain a business-friendly environment with a tax rate that is such that you provide the services they need to give them the platform on which they can launch their businesses and do the work that they need to do.
So you basically pioneered a way of going to the taxpayers and getting them to approve dedicating funds, as opposed to David's idea of raising taxes generally and letting the city council decide how to spend it.
The downside of what we have done, and I don't actually consider it a downside, is that I guess the tricky part is citizens are very distrustful of government. They're angry at government. And you have to be as open and transparent as you can. And when you say, we're only going to spend money on these things, we're only going to spend money on those things. There was a little flap a few months ago. We were doing some hike and bike trails, and it came out of the Rebuild Houston pot of money. And what people have to understand is that by our charter, by the will of the voters telling us, all sorts of money goes into this pot. And drainage fees can only be spent on drainage. Right. But we get all sorts we get metro money that can be spent on streets. We get federal dollars that can be spent on hike and bike trails. We keep track of it. The books are open. People can see the money coming in and where it's going.
So the funds are dedicated.
The funds are dedicated.
Does this the way for the city to look for the future? For example, recent studies have said that the city of Houston, compared to national standards, is 2,000 patrolmen short. Now, it doesn't mean we don't have good police. They do a great job. And every other city is short, too, I'm certain. Is this something to go back to the voters and say, would you like to pass a public safety enhancement fee that would go to police and fire so you could have more police and fire protection? That'd certainly be a way to pay for it, wouldn't it?
It would be a way to pay for it, but I would point out that we have achieved recently a crime rate that we are one of the safest big cities in America, and our murder rate is the lowest it's been since the 1960s. In fact, our entire violent crime rate is down at 1960s levels. It's been dropping precipitously, and so it's not just a matter of you need to throw more police officers at it. Now, what we have to do is make sure that We have an aggressive recruitment program so that we get new officers in, so that we replace. We have our department is getting more on the older end, and so we need to work on that.
And the police, of course, will say that they're
One
of the things that
I'm
they
not going to argue.
like.
I think we need more officers.
You do think we need
but
more?
it's not a matter of
Councilmember
we
Cohen
have to have
once-
officers in order to improve public safety. We have improved public safety with the officers we have and better use of technology. What we need to do is bring in new officers so that we are prepared for the future.
Wow.
Excellent summary, Mayor. Thank you for being here.
Prepared for the
enjoyed it.
future.
And we invite you to visit our home online at HoustonPBS.org. Click on the local program bar, red, white, and blue. Read about our guests, watch the shows, along with a follow-up discussion. Until next time, get informed and get active.